Hi, my name is Debbie. I'm a staff member in the adult department of the Westerville Public Library, and I'm here today to talk about my favorite author, Bill Bryson. Bill was born and grew up in Des Moines, Iowa in the 1950s. At age 22, he moved to England, married, and got a job that he describes as working at a very casually run insane asylum, now turned into a gated community of executive homes built in a style that might be called Russian gangster. He and his wife briefly moved to the US, at which time he wrote several US travel books, but they eventually moved back to the UK. And now he and his wife reside in England, enjoying time with their 4 children and 10 grandchildren. Bill Bryson has written over 20 nonfiction titles, which are both informative and humorous. And his genres include science, history, the English language, and travel. Here are some quotes from his science books. Geologists are never at a loss for paperweights. Or, among the many thousands of things that I have never been able to understand, one in particular stands out. That is the question of who was the first person who stood by a pile of sand and said, I bet if we took some of this and mixed it with a little potash and heated it, we could make a material that would be solid yet transparent. We could call it glass. Call me obtuse, but you could stand me on a beach till the end of time, and never would it occur to me to try to make it into windows. And here are some quotes from his history books. We used to build civilizations, but now we build shopping malls. And I refer, of course, to the soaring wonder of the age known as the Eiffel Tower. Never in history has a structure been more technologically advanced, materially obsolescent, and gloriously pointless all at the same time. And some quotes from his travel books. As the saying goes, it takes all kinds to make the world go round, though perhaps some shouldn't go quite so far around it as others. And finally, I find chopsticks frankly distressing. Am I alone in thinking it odd that a people ingenious enough to invent paper, gunpowder, kites, and any number of other useful objects, and who have a noble history extending back 3,000 years, haven't yet worked out that a pair of knitting needles is no way to capture food? My favorite 3 books by Bill Bryson are A Walk in the Woods, The Road to Little Dribbling, and his memoir, The Life and Times of the Thunderbolt Kid. All of these books are based on humorous aspects of his life experiences. Because I'm the same age as Mr. Bryson, I find his examples, his writing style, and personal memories to be laugh out loud funny. In fact, I'm not allowed to read The Life and Times of the Thunderbolt Kid near my husband anymore when he's watching TV or sleeping because I laugh too loud and I keep wanting to read him sections of the book. Bill Bryson's books are also full of amazing facts and statistics, so you are being educated as well as entertained. But because his writing style is so funny, you don't always realize that you're learning things. In this book, Bill Bryson decides to hike the entire length of the 2,100-mile Appalachian Trail after an enjoyable visit to the camping section of his local sporting goods store. He goes into the wilderness with his high school friend, and both are very unprepared. And he gives the reader a funny account of their experiences. Bryson begins the story by scaring you a little. He talks about the trail's risks, like it's dangerous animals, killing diseases, the loony hillbillies destabilized by gross quantities of impure corn liquor, and bears that bite. But the book also includes the history and lots of facts about the trail. He humorously describes their hiking difficulties and the quirky characters that they meet. A Walk in the Woods is also full of history and information about the trail and the surrounding area, including the story behind the town of Centralia, Pennsylvania, that was condemned in 1992 because of a coal fire that had been burning beneath the ground since 1962. Some of my favorite quotes from this book are Black bears rarely attack, but here's the thing. Sometimes they do. All bears are agile, cunning, and immensely strong, and they're always hungry. If they want to kill you and eat you, they can, and pretty much whenever they want. That doesn't happen often, but, and here's the absolutely salient point, once would be enough. And that's the trouble with losing your mind. By the time it's gone, it's too late to get it back. I also want to mention that if you ever see this video, which we have in the library, and don't think that this is the same thing as the book. When I saw this come out, I was so excited. And I watched the video and I was so disappointed. It takes maybe one little chapter of this book and tries to show you what happens in here. But the experiences and the descriptions are nothing like this book that I like so well. The next book that I wanted to talk about is The Road to Little Dribbling, which is also a travel book by Mr. Bryson. While he was living in England, he took a trip to revisit some cities in the UK, and his observations and hilarious descriptions include funny facts about the towns and the cities that he visits. He stops at Stonehenge, which he describes as a marvel, but whose visitor center exudes the warmth and charm of an army barracks. He also informs the reader about little-known groups, such as the Society for Clay Pipe Research, or the Pillbox Study Group, or the Roundabout Appreciation Society. And during this trip, he also has a funny run-in and problem with the VAT, which is the value-added tax that Europe has. And that prompts him to rant on and on about the new taxes that Britain may some way or someday have, which would include such things as the earphone music leakage tax and the walking much too slowly in a crowded place tax. However, my favorite book by Bill Bryson is his memoir called The Life and Times of the Thunderbolt Kid. The name of this book comes from Bill's childhood fascination with comic book heroes, and he created his own alter ego named the Thunderbolt Kid, and he imagined his superpowers could make teachers and principals disappear. This book is filled with the memoirs of his childhood in Des Moines. And as a fellow baby boomer, I can identify with the descriptions and the experiences that he talks about. He talks about all sneakers in the 1950s had over 7 dozen lace holes, and about the 7 or heavy winter boots that the boys wore that had those hard to close clasps that were made from razor blades. And the ridiculous toys in the 50s, like Lincoln Logs, where the box would show great forts and structures, and the contents included only enough to construct a small hut with one window. Talks about erector sets and electric football games. And here he goes into a hilarious description of how kids would set up the players on the metal field and turn on the electricity, which caused the field to vibrate and all the plastic players to fall over or migrate toward the wrong goal line. His conclusion was that all toys were crummy, but it didn't matter because the boys had plenty of fun throwing lit matches at each other. He also includes a lot of pop culture of the 50s in this book, and he talks about things like his favorite TV show, Sky King, how Sky would fly around endlessly in his airplane for no particular reason, and how cowboys never shot anyone on TV. They shot at people, but usually they just shot guns out of the bad guys' hands or they shot their hats off. And the dawn of color TV, the creation of fast food restaurants, dishwashers, Dick and Jane books, and the wonderful smell of mimeograph paper. Yet, he also includes things that were frightening in children's minds in the 50s, like polio, communism, and those civil defense drills where we were made to hide under our school desks to stay safe from a nuclear explosion. One of my favorite passages in this book talks about his mother's cooking. It's a bit burned, my mother would say apologetically at every meal, presenting you with a piece of meat that looked like something a much-loved pet perhaps, salvaged from a tragic house fire. But I think I scraped off most of the burnt part, she would add, overlooking that this included every bit of it that had once been flesh. Happily, all this suited my father. His palate only responded to two tastes, burned and ice cream. So everything suited him so long as it was sufficiently dark and not too startlingly flavorful. Theirs truly was a marriage made in heaven, for no one could burn food like my mother or eat it like my dad. This book is a must read for anyone that's born in the 50s. And don't forget, all his books are nonfiction. So don't go to the B's in the fiction area in the library if you want to read one of his books. You'll have to look up the Dewey numbers in the catalog to find them among the nonfiction, or you can always ask one of the friendly adult staff members to help you. So if you're looking for some humorous descriptions and some interesting and funny stories, give Bill Bryson's books a try.